Those are the people that helped put this event on together. Thanks to them. They've got another great event lined up for you this evening. And the thing that I want you to know is that we really appreciate you choosing to be here. You have choices as to how to spend your very busy time in your life here, and you chose to be here because I hope that you find content here that will help you get from where you are to where you want to be in your professional career. And today, it's about decision making. It's about decision making. So do you run into a lot of circumstances where you're like, wow, that was a great decision. Boy, we really adhered to the decision well. Now, there are a lot of issues with decision and they're costly. And our guest speaker today is going to take us through what to do about that. All righty. So, but first, before we get to that, we have to go through the vaunted announcements. Well, before I do that, by the way, if my image there is kind of in the way of things that you're seeing there, you can move this thing, which is called the, let me dock this here. It's called the AV pod. And where my video is coming at you from. Okay, you can move that around and resize it and dock it and undock it and all sorts of interesting things there. So just so you have the imagination there. On to the vaunted announcements. I think announcements ought to have like theme music or something like that. Well, I want to reach out first of all, new chapter members. You out there? New chapter members, I can see you. Those newly certified, you have a new certification. Hey, congratulations. We're thrilled to hear about that. In fact, please share that good news in the chat so that all of us can celebrate with you. So congratulations to you. Hey, also congratulations, new Director of Communications, Cheryl Copy, and our new Director of Membership, Rich Louderman. Way to go, guys. We're going to talk to the Director of Volunteers a little bit later on the session after our guest speaker as well, too. Hey, you know, Pro Dev Day 2021, the reason that we didn't meet this way in September, it was a great success. Wonderful. In fact, we're going to do it again. We're going to iterate that last digit there and do it again in 2022. And in fact, you can volunteer for that now because maybe it's fresh in your mind, some ideas you have to improve it, or you just appreciated the event so much that you'd like to give back. We're already looking for volunteers for Pro Dev Day 2022. Also now, know that you can access the 7th edition of the PMBOK. That is, if you haven't lost your chapter benefits because you're not signed up to auto renew your membership. Okay, real story just happened to me. My auto renew month was within the last 30 days or something like that, and I was signed up for auto renew, and I got pinged that it didn't work. Credit card number. I changed the credit card. We killed one. We had another one there. Maybe that happens, but the importance of auto renew. I was 4 days without PMBOK access directly, and look what happened. You could see the impact on me. So be sure to auto renew your membership there. Hey, you want to save money? 5% off certifications. Extending the special offer by the end of the year. Get that on that to-do list. Things to do by 2022. All righty. Get that certification at 95%. Remember to join us. Hang with us after the speaker. We're going to talk to the Director of Volunteers in the Volunteer Mini podcast. It's a very popular feature now. And then after that, we're going to get together for some networking, a meet and mingle, and we're going to do things differently this time. We continue to experiment with this. I hope you hang with us for this one because we think we've got happen onto a winning formula. So hang on after the speaker for 20, 30 minutes or so for some good engaging conversation that we'd like to have you. And then also there will be a survey, as there always is. It'll take you about 60 seconds to do this. And please complete that. And I'll remind you about that after we acknowledge our speaker as well. And get involved with we've covered the get involved with the PM ICIC with the ability for you to volunteer. But right now we're to a segment just before I get you into the speaker and into speaker mode here. It's now time for a word from our board. And actually, we allow them more than just one word. So it should be words from the board. And Kelly, what words from the board? This Kelly Sandstrom, Vice President of Communications, welcome. And what words from the board do you have for us this month?
Thanks, Rich. Hi, everybody. Like Rich said, my name is Kelly Sandstrom, and I do have the great pleasure of serving as your PMI Central Indiana Chapter Vice President of Communications. Tonight, I'd actually like to announce that the chapter has officially opened nominations for a few key positions on next year's Board of Directors. Our chapter is only as good as our members and leadership. A seat on the board is a wonderful opportunity to contribute your ideas to keep the chapter not only moving forward, but to also make an impact in the community that we serve. I hope you will consider volunteering for a position on our board of directors and join me and the other changemakers setting the course for our chapter's future. Volunteering on the board of directors requires a commitment of time and effort, yes, but in addition to great personal satisfaction and providing a means to exercise your leadership skills and agile project management skills, volunteering provides a great way for PMI certification holders to maintain their PMI certification. Chapter members in good standing have the opportunity to submit a nomination for one of the following open positions: the Vice President of Finance and Treasurer, the Vice President of Professional Development, and the Vice President of Membership. All nomination forms must be submitted and received no later than November 1st, 2021 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Once all of the applications have been received and confirmed for eligibility, chapter members will then have the opportunity to cast a vote for the nomination ballot from November 15th through November 29th, 2021. These new roles will take office on January 1, 2022, and they will serve a 2-year term on the board. I highly encourage you to consider volunteering for our chapter. I've been a chapter volunteer for almost 2 years now, and it's one of the most fun and rewarding volunteer roles I've ever served in. We would love to have you. If you've been considering chapter board service, now is the time to apply. If you are interested in getting started on a nomination right now, visit our website at pmicic.org. There you will see a menu link at the top that will take you to our nomination page with more information. And tomorrow, all chapter members will also receive an email with further instructions as well. Get those nominations in early, and good luck. Back to you, Rich.
Kelly, thank you so much. Great. What exciting opportunities here. And these folks, they serve incredibly well. It's incredibly important purpose, and maybe it's for you, or a friend for that matter. All righty, we bop on over. Oh, this slide, this slide. This is the boring gray and silver gray slide here, but it's the one that says the speaker is coming up next. Okay, so you want to listen. But a few things here, we at PMI, we determine honesty, responsibility, respect, and fairness. These are all characteristics that you have, and these are characteristics that we expect to apply in our professional roles, project managers in the project management profession. Remember that all the work that's presented today was the intellectual property of the presenters, and views and thoughts, opinions expressed by said presenters are theirs and not necessarily those of PMI or PMI CIC. And lastly, unauthorized reproduction and distribution of any copyright work, I mean, not only the ones that are here today, but other things you may run across is illegal and punishable under federal law, and I hear those feds, they don't have much of a sense of humor. Not that I know personally. And now, drum roll, please. Imagine that drum roll. This is John Stenbeck. John Stenbeck, our special guest presenter today, president and co-founder of Great PM, is a 3-time Amazon #1 best-selling author whose books have achieved over 3 million in sales. They include the Agile Almanac Trilogy and Enterprise Agility in Healthcare. John was a forensic accountant before he became an engineer, then a project manager. So his approach to leadership, innovation, and agility involves, catch this, optimistic skepticism, along with deep, careful research to clarify best practices so they can be used to cultivate amazing outcomes in any organization. John was instrumental, for instance, in ensuring that the content and materials of the Disciplined Agile certification program would be world class and maximize the benefit to fellow PMI members. Perhaps you've been involved in that certification or are considering it. John he's a PMP, a certified disciplined Agile instructor, PMI, ACP, and a certified Scrum professional. His goal, though, is to achieve maximum knowledge transfer by giving you useful, powerful information in an easily accessible format. So please buckle up, hold on tight, because John is about to help you fast track your expertise to the next level. John, Thanks for taking the time to join us. And can I sit in the front car?
Hey, absolutely. Thank you, Rich. And so I need to click to turn on the presentation. Do I have that right? Hey, maybe. There we go. Back to the first slide. Cool. Thank you, Rich, for that wonderful introduction. I think I'm going to take you along as my personal announcer for all of my future webinars. And welcome to all of the PMI CIC members who are here with us tonight. We're going to have some fun. We're going to learn a lot, and I hope you'll be interactive. Now, I'm an old curmudgeon, as you can see. I'm not a digital native, so I don't do chatting and all that stuff while I'm presenting. However, Rich has promised me he'll pay attention to and monitor the chat. And if you express a question that way because you want to maintain your anonymity or whatever, right, he'll make sure it gets shouted out to me at an appropriate time or to jump in and whatever. And your questions won't interrupt me or my flow or my thinking. I'm not working from a script. And so you should feel free to jump in with questions anytime. We're here tonight really to talk about how the heck do we get senior executives to give up the analysis paralysis, the inaction, and make decisions. And if you know much about executives, you know that the bottom line dollars really, the money talks, everybody else walks, and that's the way to get their attention. So I'm going to show you some very cool research that'll help you understand and apply what is called decision latency so that you can have those insights to help you not only professionally with moving your projects forward, moving your organizations forward, moving forward your opportunity to become a truly trusted advisor to your senior stakeholders. But then we're going to have some fun at the end, and how do you apply it to you personally, your career, and to making more money and doing more fun and exciting things. And really what we're going to talk about, you see kind of pictured there, is that there's been this general movement, this flow, kind of started with Scrum Agile, the ITIL version 4 came out, PMI, Discipline Agile, and they all have been sort of pointing in this direction of where is life for professional practitioners like you and me. Where's it headed? And then the Chaos Report 2020 came out. Now, I'm going to guess that you're familiar with the Chaos 2020 report. It's been coming out, or Chaos Report, really. It's been coming out every 2 years since 1994. You've seen it quoted and highlighted in various different slide shows and presentations where they talk about projects are categorized as successful, challenged, or failed. Generally, it's been about one third, one third, and one third in each of those categories. And so the Standish group is a research group. They use statistically significant sample sizes. In the case of the Chaos Report, a sample of 5,000 projects. They use rigorous scientific methods, and they do a lot of deep research and analysis. And they're pointing in a particular direction. And then out comes the PMBOK Guide 7th edition here, 60 days ago or so. And it's saying that your role, your career, your future as a project manager really is at the intersection of people, products, projects, and processes where value creation occurs. And so I'm going to get into some very specific content from each of those. But to start with, right, I want to touch on some things you already know because you may know them and have forgotten them, or you may sort of know them but not realize that you know them. So we're going to highlight those first. And a couple of those points are that we need to begin thinking and organizing and planning around products and services. And that is a quote directly out of the PMBOK Guide 7th edition. And we do that by crafting customer value creation pipelines, which is a concept and idea that's coming out of the Chaos 2020 report, which the most recent one's titled Beyond Infinity. And this 2020 report, in it, they announced it's the last of the Chaos reports. Now, don't get me wrong, the Standish Group makes a lot of money selling that report. Right, I got my personal copy. All I had to do was go to their website, swipe my credit card, and give them $675, which is what it costs to get a copy of that report. But it's got really good research in it, and a lot of organizations buy several copies. You might not have seen it unless you're a CIO or CTO or CFO or CEO. But at that C-suite level, there's a lot of familiarity. And for the rest of us in all of our various kinds of breakout sessions and symposiums, you've seen the quotes about how many projects are successful or challenged or failed and other things from it. Well, this Chaos 2020 report, which they announced, as I said, is the last of the Chaos reports, included an epilogue explaining why this is the last of the Chaos reports. And by the way, yes, I know the Standish Group makes a lot of money selling the Chaos report. The Chaos report leads to a lot of consulting gigs for them. So yes, I know there will be another report in 2022. It just won't be called the Chaos report. And the reason for that is highlighted or drawn out in the epilogue, where they looked at 60 years of history and identified 4 evolutionary periods. 1960 to 1980 was the Wild West. And honestly, for any of those who were practitioners back then, yes, it was. We didn't know if token ring or Ethernet was going to be the dominant topology. We didn't know if IBM or Microsoft was going to win. For a large portion of that, we had never even heard of this thing called a PC, much less an app and a mobile device. But it was the Wild West, and there was all this crazy stuff going on, and companies were spending increasingly large sums of money and feeling like they weren't getting good results. And that spawned the second period, 1980 to 2000, called the waterfall period. Now, interesting, or perhaps predictably, the growth of an organization called PMI spiked during this period, and PMI became huge. They became one of the 800-pound gorilla opinion makers. And project management moved from being a subset of a subdepartment of the engineering wing to its own profession, recognized by the federal government with its own NAICS code. And it came into the light of its own and really became truly a profession. And that was the waterfall period. Well, then around 2000, the Agile period started, and that shouldn't surprise you. The Agile Manifesto came out in 2001. Of course, Agile existed before then, right? RAD, RUP, Spiral had existed previous, but the marketplace environment, the clock speed of the marketplace wasn't demanding enough at that point to validate the added overhead. And Agile done right, whether it's RAD, RUP, Spiral, or Scrum, or SAFe, or whatever's right, Agile done right requires more overhead than the traditional approach to project management. So why would we do that? The lean principles say eliminate waste, except that eliminating waste includes reducing risk and eliminating rework. And when you're in a marketplace that has the clock speed, the uncertainty, the challenges that we face, the risk of rework and mistakes and failed products is ever bigger. And so the added overhead of Agile done right, the added meetings, the added documentation, all the things that you have to do Agile correct, right? That's justified because it reduces so much risk and gives us a path to success in the midst of all this complexity and uncertainty, and eliminates the high probability of very expensive rework. And so Agile is very important and has played a very important role. But the reason that the Agile evolutionary period is drawing to a close is Agile is no longer enough. We're moving beyond that. According to the Chaos report epilogue, the research that the Standish Group has done, we're now emerging. What's beginning to emerge is this new evolutionary period that they are calling infinite flow. So think of infinite flow, as business pipelines, as value creation, as value streams, right? You're hearing everybody talking in and around this concept, and value creation is at the heart of it. In fact, the PMBOK Guide 7th edition, and I've got a quote here I want to read from you because this is word for word, letter for letter, right out of the PMBOK Guide 7th edition. Organizations are taking an integrated view of project and product management and can benefit from examining program management frameworks as a stepping stone. The problem with that quote is it's as a stepping stone to what? You see, even the PMBOK Guide acknowledges that we are moving into a new evolutionary period, but it also steps back a little bit. It retracts a little bit because it doesn't say what we're stepping into, in part because that's unknown, but also in part because infinite flow, value creation, value pipelines, value streams, all that stuff is sort of more from the product management body of knowledge and discipline than it is from the project management discipline. And so if PMI is too explicit, it makes it sound like they're giving up their position as the lead dog pulling the sled and expecting somebody else to take over the lead. And they faced an existential threat of becoming irrelevant in the marketplace had they stayed with the curator role that they've had for the last 50 years, that they maintained through the 6th edition PMBOK guide. With the release of the 7th edition PMBOK guide 60 days ago, they said we can no longer be just a curator. We must become a leader, a thought leader. We have to expand. So when the 6th edition PMBOK guide came out, right, it was co-published with the Agile Practice Guide, and where we had 600 and some pages of content with the 5th edition, the combined content of the 6th edition and the Agile Practice Guide was 952 pages. And a lot of us went, oh my God, something's wrong in this picture. It's got to be fixed. Well, along comes the PMBOK Guide 7th edition, and it's down to 274 pages. How can that be? Well, they realized that an every 4-year update cycle is far too slow for the speed of the marketplace. And so huge amounts of things have now been moved into the PMI Standards Plus platform so we can be interactive. Never before has your opportunity, the value of your membership and your active involvement in your PMI chapter been higher. Because PMI is tooling up this platform, PMI Standards Plus, because you need it to be perceived as a leader in your role, in your organization, in your marketplace. And so that tool set is coming available to us. Right? Beyond that, what does that lead to? Well, it leads to another thing that you already know. You already know that solution development is subject to the cone of uncertainty. And the cone of uncertainty has been around a long time. I'm sure you've seen it or had heard it spoken to in other places and things, right? It says that if I start at T minus 450 days, let's say I'm a year and a half before the actual launch of the project or the product or the outcome or the result that we want, there's still a great deal of unknowns. There's a lot of variability. There's a lot of different ways this could go. That means that all that variability is actually high risk. And as we move towards delivering, as we redesign, as we go through rolling wave planning, progressive elaboration, decomposition, to use the traditional words, right? As we go from roadmaps to release plans to iterations, to use the Agile words, right? As we move through that cone of uncertainty, then our variability goes down and our risk goes down. So you already know solution development's highly uncertain, right? You know that innovation is inherently risky. You also sort of know at a gut level, at least, that human nature, organizations, and developers have this inherent desire to reduce variability because we feel safer when we do that. The problem is that's a false sense of safety. It may feel safer to reduce variability prematurely, but it's not safer and it's a mistake. Variability is unavoidable, it's a constant, and it's neither good nor bad, it just is. So we have to have intelligent ways to deal with that. And this is where the chaos report and the idea of an infinite pipeline and this pipeline of ever improving increments of products and product families ties right into what you already know and what you're seeing here. So we can take this and now we can look at the risk time curve as a type of cone of uncertainty. And so I want a quick poll question for you, if you would, please, right? Give me a quick vote. How have you ever had a key stakeholder fail to make a timely decision? What would you say, yes or no? Go ahead and give us a quick vote. It would appear on my screen that you got about 99 of you in the meeting here. About 40 of you have voted. We're going to give it another minute or two. Great, we've got to 50. How about it? Come on, what are you thinking about? What's our percentage here? 54% of you have voted. So I've got a couple of
Wow.
no's and a whole lot of yeses. What do you think there, Rich?
It looks, yeah, yes is going to win, I think, in a runaway. We'll give it just a few more seconds
Yeah,
here.
it looks like a
I'll end the
landslide
voting.
election, right?
It,
Yeah,
it 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 is. This is where we
yeah,
usually get to in participation. I'll end the voting, and there you
yeah,
go,
yeah.
sharing results with everybody now.
Beautiful, right? So there you go. You can see that. Let me get back to my slide deck, right? So the overwhelming majority of you, whoops, what did I do wrong here? I'm back. There we go. Thank you. Okay, just took a minute for the technology. I get excited about this because this is cool stuff. This is interesting stuff. This can make a huge difference in your life. So the vast majority of, a few of you have been lucky enough to have never had a key stakeholder fail to make a timely decision. I would love to meet you and find out who those stakeholders were. I would pay them to be the key sponsor of any of my initiatives because that's such a rare trait, right? So uncertainty conflicts with the enterprise requirement to manage investments, to track progress, to have confidence in future outcomes so they can build marketing programs, so they can talk to shareholders, stakeholders, lenders, whoever that is, with a level of confidence. They need that. And what agility brings to the table, right, is a means, a method for defining and making measurable progress in acceptable time, for us to move down that risk curve, to move forward through that cone of uncertainty, to move out of high risk and into reasonable, manageable, lower risk, and to desirable outcomes that we want. And so as we look at that, we ask, okay, how do we do that? And one of the tools, again, things you already know, set-based design, leverages the cone of uncertainty. Now, you might not have attached it to that, but you know that set-based design says, hey, let's start out our design. We've got 4 options. At some point, we'll have a milestone. We'll do a down select. We'll say which of these 4 has the least likelihood of staying valuable or being valuable. We eliminate it. We continue with the 3 to the next down select milestone. We eliminate the least, valuable, least useful one down to the 2 till we make the final down select when now risk is down to a manageable level. The end of the program or deliverable requirements are within sight, and we begin then chasing a particular path. So agility produces what I'll call a safety zone that balances the need for innovation in order to stay relevant in the marketplace with the need for the business to have confidence that they are making appropriate progress with confidence going forward, that they can share with lenders, stakeholders, and the like. So set-based design assumes that variability is necessary. It's an element of success. In the early stages, it preserves our options, and then it converges by this I'm calling down select kind of process, and converge as needed to produce optimal technical and economic outcomes. And it ties to 2 concepts. If you've been around Agile much, you've heard them before. In case you haven't, let me share them with you, right? The first one is deferred commitment. And deferred commitment came into Agile directly from Lean. So if you're familiar with Lean, you've heard of deferred commitment. It says, don't make the decision any earlier than you need to, so that you allow the best possible amount of time to get the best possible, most complete possible information, but recognize when you reach the last responsible moment for making a decision. And notice, I said last responsible moment, but you may have internalized last possible moment, and I didn't say that. Waiting to the last possible moment is like trying to win in the stock market by timing your trades, and that's a guaranteed failure mechanism. I didn't say last possible moment, I said last responsible moment. And that means it's a moment in the sense that there's a range there. You never know exactly when, but you know pretty much when you've gone too far. In fact, if you've ever been on a project that was late, in fact, I think we have a poll question here. No, that's a different, okay. Right. If you've ever been on a project that was already behind schedule the day it was given to you or the day you became part of it, it was because some decision maker didn't make a decision by the last responsible moment. They let that overrun. And so that's a problem. We do have another poll. Let's have a little fun here with the group. All right. So what would you say is the most common average budget size for your organization? Let's get a sense of, across the gathering here that we have, How big are the typical projects you're running? Which range are they in? Under 2 million, 2 to 20, 21 to 50, or over 50 million? Give us a quick vote. Again, your participation really helps add to the value that you receive out of the meeting. So what do you think there? Okay, we're a lot of under 2 million, plenty of 2 to 20 million. In fact, that's starting to, looks like it's surging. It's about tied. Yeah, those two are about tied. And then we have some on the bigger end.
Yeah, about a handful on the mammoths.
Yeah, yeah,
Project
the really,
Project Bubby.
the big ones.
It's
Yeah,
the
man.
behemoths. Hmm.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
All
we're
right. Everybody
gonna
got a
end
chance to cue in?
voting,
Okay. Let's
and
share
I
it
will
out with
share the
everybody.
results with everybody. There you go, everyone. You can
Beautiful.
see the numbers there.
Yep. Right. So we have an emphasis on the smaller projects, but we do have some of the larger projects. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take you through some research that we got, right, that has come from the chaos report, that has come from the Standish group. And what it says, and this is going to be somewhat counterintuitive, right? Somewhat, um, at least maybe it's because I was a forensic accountant before I was an engineer. But if you tell me that making a fast decision is more valuable than making a good decision, which is what it sounds like to my ears, I mean, I feel like I lose my mind. That can't possibly be true. But what their research showed is that the value of an early decision versus the value experienced by a late decision, the amount of value lost is actually mathematically, numerically, business, dollars and cents. You're better off to make poor quality decisions, but make them sooner. So compressing our time to decision increases the value of decision, right? We acknowledge, we know that different decisions have different curves. So I'm not trying to tell you your decision has this value time curve. I'm just saying that the enterprise value time curve generically kind of works that way. Hey, Rich, I just had a thought. Did we tell them that the PDF of this presentation is in shared files that they can download it? I hope we did. If we didn't, and you're just hearing that for the first time, right? There on your dashboard or whatever we call that, it says public. Next to that says Q&A mode. Next to that says shared files. If you click on shared files,
You got it.
you can access and download it. It helps make it easier to take notes because I know I talk too fast. I get kind of excited about this. I think this is really cool, powerful stuff, and it can help you make a lot more money. Maybe that's part of why I'm very excited about it, right? So this idea that value lost, you know, we've all said over the years, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Did you know the brain research shows that human beings process visual images 50 to 60,000 times faster than text or verbal communications? 50 to, so truly a good picture, a well illustrated picture is worth 50 to 60,000 words. And so I hope you're seeing here an early decision, because it drives so much more value than a late decision, that the break even point is radical. And we're going to get to that in just a second, right? So every decision curve you look at has several periods of latency. Discovery latency, where we're learning about what we need to decide. Alignment latency, to figure out how it's going to integrate with what we're already doing. And development latency, about how we're going to develop it. So we have different decision periods, and we have different discovery, alignment, and development periods. But decisions must integrate innovation and business confidence, as I already said. They must understand and apply deferred commitment and last responsible moment in order to make sound decisions. So let's get back to the chaos report, right? The chaos report is where this idea of how do we demonstrate the cost of decision latency. And again, the Standish group uses statistically significant sample sizes, 5,000 projects. They use scientific methods for analyzing their data. And they said, and please, I put this here in parentheses, but I fully imagine that you are feeling the counterintuitiveness, that you're feeling like I must be misunderstanding what Stenbeck's saying, because what he is saying is crazy. But it's true. It's counterintuitive, and it's easy to misunderstand, but it's true. The value of the interval, the value of the time interval is of greater importance, greater value, greater financial impact than the quality of the decision. Now, I'm not talking in the extreme. Yes, you could make extremely bad decisions that are the exception that prove the rule. But a reasonably intelligent, reasonably well-informed approach to decision making, the time interval is far more important than the quality or caliber of the decision. How do we know that, right? What are the specific things the Chaos Report has said, right? It says that project teams that demonstrate low latency decision making, in other words, are fast decision makers, right? They have a much higher success rate versus those with high latency. In other words, they're slow decision makers. They said specifically that swift decisions are typically better, right? That's so counterintuitive. They're actually typically a better decision than a more long drawn out one. So not only does the time interval help us, but we typically get a better decision if we make it faster. So high latency decision making, slow decision making actually drives major overruns and outright failures. I'm telling you, that's crazy sounding. But if you start sharing this kind of research with your senior executives, when they see the light, which they will, you become a trusted advisor. Your career starts to accelerate precisely because you are giving them vital information that they're not getting somewhere else. And you're the curator and the provider of it. So what else did the Chaos 2020 report? Okay, so it said on average, projects created one decision for every $1,000 in labor cost. On average, the cost of a 1-hour decision was about $100, or i.e. 10% of the budget. They found that if the average decision took 4 hours for a given project, it increased budget variances by about 40%. Negative budget variance, that is, by about 40%. If the average was more than 5 hours, the budget variance, the cost of the project easily doubled, and the time to completion was greatly extended. So the value of fast decisions is positive, and based on their math, based on the numbers they publish, some of which I'm going to show you here in the next couple of slides, right? That you only reach the break-even point when 50% of your decisions are bad decisions. What you see here is that if only 10% of your decisions are bad and 90% are okay, you get a $20 million effective benefit based on their research, right? It goes to 15 if 20% of your decisions are bad. It's only when you reach the point where half of your decisions, 1 out of 2, are bad decisions, do you even reach the point where it's a break even. You have to make more than 50% bad decisions for fast decisions to be a mistake. I'm telling you, that's a pretty wide window that you can use to improve your results, right? What else did we learn from them? Organizations with high latency decision making, in other words, that are slow to make decisions, have higher reversal rates, and decision reversals cause 3x the cost they drive it 3x, right? First the cost to reverse, then the cost to replace, then the cost to correct things already done. Rich, I see you're back, but you're muted. What's up?
We have a got me there. We have a question here. I thought
Yeah,
I'd break into this point because it kind of
perfect,
relates to some
beautiful.
of the content from the last slide as well.
Yeah.
So from Dan Stevens here, hey, does the statement, I think on the preceding slide, take into account the possibility of fine tuning a decision that's made early towards a goal of then having a better decision? And I kind of
Daniel,
have a related
yeah,
question. Go ahead, go with
okay.
Daniel first.
I just, first of all, Daniel, great question. I'm going to give you a simple answer. They didn't address that in the research. I have my own thoughts or opinions, but I'm an accountant, so I'm gonna resist that urge, and I'm gonna stick to the research at least until we get to the Q&A part. Rich, you had a follow on. You wanted to extend it. Your own
While
thoughts.
I did, you just answered it with that no. He's on the research question. So
Hey,
I'll
see,
turn you
I
back and
did the
go back to,
Viking, did the
yeah.
Vulcan mind meld, baby.
You,
Beat you
you
to the
did in
punch.
that case there. So I'll catch you on the back end though. So
Okay,
we'll head
very
back
cool.
to your slide.
All right. And again, Daniel, Thank you for jumping in with that question. I love those questions. They really help you process the information. They help everybody else that's joined us process the information. And personally, it makes this, for me to hear my own voice and to hear my own stuff again is kind of boring. So I appreciate that. Thank you. It was a gift to me. Right. So high latency decision-making groups have higher reversal rates. Reversals have a 3x impact on cost. First, the cost to reverse, then the cost to replace, then the cost to correct the things that were already done based on the first decision, right? If the average decision latency for your project, your team, your group, your organization is greater than 3 hours, it causes typically about a 40% decision reversal rate. So 1,000 decisions become 2,200. Again, I'm quoting directly out of the Standish Group Chaos 2020 report. They did the research, they did the calculation. This is what they're saying. High latency decision making drives stakeholder frustration and erodes future decision making speed. So it feeds on itself and it makes matters worse. And high latency decision making causes teams to lose a sense of commitment, fuels them to shift into go through the motions compliance mode, which has a huge risk of then becoming malicious obedience, right? You just can't go there. It's fatal. And innovation dies. So here now you see this grid that I created with the data out of the chaos report. So if decision latency is low, minimal, right, means they're good decision makers, and your project baseline cost is 10 million, then based on the information from the chaos report from the Standish Group, right, then your decision costs are going to be about 10% of your total cost. So now your total cost really is going to be 11 million. You see how your latency goes from minimal to low to moderate to high. As you get slower and slower about making decisions, your decisions costs go from 10% to 20% to 50% to 100%. And suddenly a project that had a $10 million cost budget or cost baseline is suddenly going to cost 20 million. And there aren't that many projects that can handle that kind of a cost variance and stay in the black. They go red. They drive very negative results. They have major problems. When your senior executives see the money, right? Remember the movie Show Me the Money, right? When they see the money, when they see this, it gets really hard for them to say it's not all that important for them to make time on their calendar when you ping them and say, I need to meet because I need a decision. I got to clarify something with you. Right? The whole point of this isn't just to get them to make decisions, it's get them to realize that you're an important informer, you're an important advisor, you're a trusted advisor they need to prioritize time with. When they do that, the reverberations will be you get selected for the better projects, the cool projects, the bigger projects, the projects that make more money, that lead to bigger Christmas bonuses, that lead to future promotions. There's a whole positive spiral in this for you. And it's not just the chaos report that's thinking and talking this way, right? As an epilogue to this whole thing, right? Sometimes decision latency comes at a much bigger cost than a financial cost. It comes with an existential threat. I'm very proud of the fact that the PMI made the bold move to release the PMBOK Guide 7th edition, to shrink it down, to launch the PMI Standards Plus platform, all as an expression of them and us moving from being curators, being umpires, to being players, to being leaders, to being decision makers. Because had we stayed the museum curator of project management goodness, we would be gone and our profession would be receding because the marketplace demands would lose respect for us. Unless you doubt that, you sit back in your chair and say, how could that be? There's 1 million PMPs. There's 500,000 PMI members. There's 250,000 PMI chapter members. Let me give you 2 case studies of organizations that missed the fact that their decision latency was allowing an existential threat to ruin their future. You may be familiar with what we've always called the JCs, the United States Junior Chamber of Commerce. It was formed in 1920. Its membership included U.S. presidents, congressmen, senators, mega successful business people, super successful celebrities, all kinds of elite athletes. And at their peak, their membership was around 400,000, about the same as our 500,000 PMI members, right? By 2010, when I did the research that backs all this up, their membership was down to 26,000. They were a shell of their former selves. Case study number 2, the American Production and Inventory Control Society. Until the at least the mid 1990s, Apex was a force to be reckoned with. They were big and they were impactful and they were an awful lot like PMI is today, but they really missed how important the shift to lean was. And their membership, which at its peak was 440,000, had dropped by nearly 90% to only 45,000 in 2010. You see, latency can be an existential threat, and it can be an existential threat to your future. So what do I mean by that? I want to just pop through one more poll and a few more slides, and let's get to Q&A and have some fun. So real quick poll, approximately how many years left or remaining in your career working life? Under 10, 10 to 15, over 20, 16, 20, what would you say? Give us a quick vote there so we have that we can have some fun looking at those numbers.
John, I'm looking for less than others.
Very good. Yeah, I like it, right?
I have an acute higher sense of urgency every day.
Yeah. And I don't know whether to feel envious of the people who are clicking in there that they've got over 20 years left in their career, or to feel, glad that I don't. Yeah.
I'd go there.
Right.
I'd go there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's sometimes I think I wouldn't mind being younger, but man, it's tough when you have 2 decades still to look at. All right, so we have a
There you
pretty
go.
good turnout
Share
there.
the
Thank you
results
all
out.
for sharing that. Let's share those results out so everybody gets a chance to see them, right? So there's some of us old curmudgeons in the room with under 10 years to go, and then it spreads out there, and there's some that and by the way, kudos to you who are young enough to still have 15 or more years left in your career, and that you're here, that you're part of this chapter, you're part of this meeting, right? You're doing the right thing so that your career can absolutely flourish to its maximum. All right, so that poll and these last slides, honestly, this is me getting on my pet peeve soapbox, because I think, and you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, you can challenge me if you think I'm wrong, but I think if we did an IQ test of a statistically significant sample size of people in sales, people management, and engineering and technical professionals like us who are PMI members, I think the average IQ curve would be much higher for us than it would for them. That's not what frustrates me. What my pet peeve is that when I look at the compensation, right, the valuation that they get, why is it that we seem to be the losers in this picture? Why is it that salespeople seem to have so much higher compensation than we do? And I think I discovered the answer recently. And it ties right to this decision latency, right? The value of making a decision early in the career of a salespeople. Somebody tells me you got to go to a career growth training event, right? We hear them advertised, we see them, and we think, oh, those people are crazy. And so along go some of the management people too, and they get an upshift in the baseline of their curve. Well, salespeople aren't, they're crazy maybe in some sense, but they know if they went to one event and it got an upshift to their income curve, hell, they're going to another event. So a year or two later, they do that. And I think it's those upshifting of those growth events, which is why their curve ends up higher than our curve, even though clearly our IQ is higher than theirs. And because that might be true, right? We have to really start to think about, if we want to have financial independence, if we want to have the things that I believe we're honestly entitled to because of the value we deliver, we need to start engaging more effectively in career growth events like the webinar you're on right now, like the chapter meetings, like the chapter symposiums, like all of the different things that your PMI chapter does to help you, right? If you don't, you suffer the value loss. You make less money than the darn salespeople. Almost used a much coarser word, right? You suffer the income loss, and they make more money, but it's because they're quote unquote stupid enough to go to these events. So, and as I said, especially those of you who are younger that had those longer years on that remaining career years poll, keep coming back. You need to do this. So let me give you three last thoughts, three last slides on how can you advance, your career. What are some specific things you can do? Choice number one, you've heard me speak to it already. Engage with your chapter. It's good that you're here. It's good that you're participating and learning. If you're not already volunteering, now you don't have to be as crazy as Rich or some of these other board members. And I say that tongue in cheek because I spent 10 years serving on the board of PMI San Diego. And then when I relocated to Spokane, I served 2 years on the board up here of a much smaller chapter. And I've continued to stay involved. I eat my own dog food, as the saying goes. I really believe you need to engage because you not only learn stuff here, but you meet the other people who are serious about this career, about their career. And as often as not, the gold wasn't in the presentation, it was in the coffee cup at the dinner table. It was in the chat room or the breakout room where somebody said something and I went, bang, that's exactly the answer I was looking for. So engage. You need to be engaged with your chapter. Another way that you can engage with your chapter, of course, right, is to get involved with some of the training programs that are out there. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Disciplined Agile. This is kind of a WBS. They broke down to the 5 steps of how the Agile process works. I don't have time to go through it for you now, but Disciplined Agile is a really good toolkit, and it's well aligned with where our future is going for our career. So I highly recommend that. A second option for you in terms of choice, add an integrated skill set. You saw the slides. I pointed it out, right? People, products, projects, processes. You got to know enough in all of those to be able to work at the center of that Venn diagram as a value creation executive, as a value creation master. And so we're creating a program. And if you'd like to have more information about it, you might like to be involved in one of the alpha or beta pilot groups that gets to see it first and learn about it. We're developing what we're calling a PM Black Belt program that is all about becoming a master of value creation by integrating these 4 things. And then last but not least, because Rich is crazy, no, because I'm crazy too, right? If you're really looking for something really that's kind of off the edge, totally amazing, I'm calling it really something for the elite 3%, and it's kind of by invitation. I'm creating a new event called Engineer to Succeed. It's the leadership launchpad equivalent to those stupid sales meetings that I mentioned about. One thing we didn't mention in my introduction that's perhaps worth you knowing as regards to this, my dad was a billion-dollar successful entrepreneur. So I grew up with the kind of coaching and mentoring that you can only get from a parent who will apply it day in and day out. And I've categorized and I've used so many of his little sayings and models and methods to achieve the financial freedom and success that I enjoy. And I thought, there's probably a few other crazies out there. This would be a where we get away for a 2-day weekend someplace nice, and we just spend some time, no more than 10 or 12 of us, and we really talk about what's it mean to be an elite leader. So I'm playing around with that again. If you want to know more, feel free to reach out to me. But remember, engage with your chapter. Rich, thank you for being engaged and making so much of this possible for us. What's next?
John, we got a couple questions coming in here.
Okay.
Daniel Stevens again on the
Yeah,
quality of
beautiful.
decisions. And then we're going to come back to what you're just talking about. Are they based on outcomes or the decision itself? I mean, some good decisions actually have bad outcomes, for instance.
You know what? Again, I don't think that I saw that question clarified in the research from the Standish group, but what they did, right, was they took a sample size of 5,000 projects and they interviewed and questionnaires and did all of that stuff with the key people involved with those 5,000 project sponsors, project managers, project whatever that was. And then they drew out and analyzed this. So I'm not exactly sure how they differentiated good decisions from bad decisions in terms of coming up with that math. I don't know the answer
Okay.
precisely or exactly, but because of the rigor of that's part of their reputation, I have felt comfortable not trying to drive any deeper to know that. So good questions. Thank you, Daniel.
All right, from Cynthia, really interesting here. It seemed over the last couple of slides this came up. Are you suggesting that having networking connection is one of the key reasons salespeople compensation is so much higher?
You know what, Cynthia? I don't know that I was suggesting that, but I think you've drawn a really good conclusion. I might steal that and integrate it, right? Because
This is
they have
intriguing. Yeah.
right they have the meetings. They're there to talk to each other. They find out what's happening in the marketplace. They're trying to respond to it and be there to sell more stuff because that's their job. So all of that ties to it. And I will say, right. In fact, another little thing that I'm fond of saying, right? We all know IQ drives the first 5 years of your career acceleration, your career path. EQ fuels the next 10 or 15 based on how well you can work with other people and your teams and stuff. I now call it IQ2, which is the icing on the cake. And IQ2 means your influence quotient, which
Oh,
would be your
I
networking
like that.
connections with other people.
Hmm.
And,
Along
and
with other things, your
along with
effectiveness
other
of
things.
communication, your
Yeah,
ability to actually come up with
yeah,
good ideas.
yeah,
Interesting.
right. And and
Uh,
and, and I'm just going to say, and by the way, you need to know, um, right? That's part of the reason it's valuable because look at it this way, right? If you suddenly needed a job and Rich suddenly needed a job, not that he ever actually wants a hardworking job, anyhow.
you never know.
But even though you're a nice person and I've seen your name on the screen here with your question and you pinged me via LinkedIn or email and Rich did, who do you think is going to get a higher attention response? Rich is somebody I'm connected to. Rich, I know volunteers. Rich, I know does things for the community. I'm willing to invest more of myself and my reputation on his behalf than somebody I don't know. So to that earlier question and questioner, right? There's no way that networking doesn't impact positively. It absolutely does. So that's part of why you have to be connected to your chapter.
You mentioned your dad in here. Somebody's looking for a little bit of
Yes.
background.
Yeah. Was he an engineer? Never, not formally, not degreed, but damn, the guy could fix or build anything. And, it's kind of like, some people say, well, Steve Jobs didn't graduate or Bill Gates didn't graduate or Einstein didn't graduate. Yeah, you know what? If you've got their IQ, you don't need to graduate. And my dad was not a degreed engineer, didn't have some of those formal education things, but if you had the intellectual horsepower that my dad had and his commitment to doing the right thing and the best thing possible for every human being he ever interacted with, then the formula for success is yours. So great question. Anik, you win the prize. I've never been asked that before. So thank you for a great question and a chance for me to reflect on my dad a little more.
John, run for me. It's on the topic you've just been talking about, I think. People and decision making. You brought
Yes.
up some names of people. Are there any role models that are really excellent at decision making?
Ooh, good question. Get me on the spot off the guard. My dad was a really good one, but you can't talk to him because he's deceased. Um, who do we know in the public sphere that I think is a really good? So, okay, so this is going to sound really weird, and you're going to take it the wrong way, and you're going to think I'm his fan because I'm going to say his name, and none of that's true. But whether you love him or hate him, Donald Trump was a very effective decision maker. Whether you love him or hate him, whether you agreed with his policies or not, his decisions got things done. Now, was he a likable guy? Am I a big fan of his? Well, yeah, I almost hate to say he was a good decision maker. It really makes me uncomfortable. So I don't know. Great question, Rich. I didn't have an answer for it.
All righty. John, I want to thank you very much. Hang around just a second here
Yeah,
while I
happy
cover
to.
off this slide here. We had some questions about the PDU code, and look, boom, there it is. I want to thank everybody for attending, but I want to ask also, hey, hang around for another 20 to 30 minutes for the networking session here. John, are you able to hang around for that as
Hey,
well?
heck yeah.
Okay, some lucky group is going to get John, the guest speaker today, in a roundtable back and forth environment to be able to ask some more questions. Remember, our next program is coming up Wednesday, November 17th. Look for details on that. Don't forget to complete tonight's survey. You see that little bar there at the top here saying take our survey here. You click that here button. You can take that survey, get it done in the next 60 seconds here. John, I thank you again so much for all that you contribute to PMI, the profession itself, sharing all of this with us today. Oftentimes we like to have something maybe physical, but we can't these days. And
Hey,
you're,
no
you're
worries.
frankly you're frankly across the country from us, as I understand as
Yeah,
well. So I do have this for you
thank you.
though, and it is signed really by Casey and Galen here, a couple of our board member officers
Thank you.
here as well.
Thank you.
Certificate of appreciation. I will send this along to you with our undying gratitude as well.
Thank you. And
So
I made kind of a joke about that obviously we're connected. So for everybody else, if you reach out to me on LinkedIn, I will accept your invitation. We will be connected. And if you remind me that I know you because you're part of the chapter, if I can help you in any way, I'm happy to do that.
that's awesome. Okay, John, you can go ahead and go off cam and off mic for just a little bit, and
Okay,
then you'll
cool.
be engaged. Just hang on, and you'll get engaged with the networking. I'm going to explain the networking event to everybody here. But first, it's this time of the meeting. It's now time. Don't adjust the dial there. Everything's okay. It's time for the volunteer mini podcast, and today we have the interim co-director of volunteers, and if he can turn his microphone and camera on, so we can see you, and then I can officially introduce. It will be the little buttons that are red that get to turn green there, Krishnan.
Hello
It's
there.
hello, Krishnan Venkataraman.
You
Krishnan,
nearly
how are
got
you?
that right. Thank you.
Well, so I'm going to start with the name Krishnan. How did I do in pronunciation?
I would rate a 9 out of a 10, so that's
Oh
good.
my gosh, that's enough to give me an
I
8.
bet
It's
you've been
when the scale was
practicing this all week,
93.
so yeah.
Well, I looked at LinkedIn because sometimes people can put the pronunciation, but I looked for your name on LinkedIn, Krishnan, and there are like 5,000 of you out there. This name is a fairly common name.
It is a pretty common name, especially in the south of India, which is where I'm actually from.
Very neat, very neat. So, okay, so you are now, let's see, it's the interim co-director. There's a lot going on here. Co-director of volunteers. What does it take to get the interim off that?
Well, it's probably going to take another 2 months. That's what it's going to take to get the interim off it.
Time,
So,
time. And co-director means you're sharing the role with someone. How's that
yes,
going?
and that is actually going well. Of course, it has its own challenges, but every challenge is actually an opportunity. So we probably might end up with a playbook on how two people can perform a single role and still be successful at implementing that role. So this could very well become a case study for PMI CIC.
Wow, that would be impressive. So, what do you do when you're not volunteering for PMI?
Well, unfortunately, I'm wedded to my computer and to my phone, so I'm in meetings from a work standpoint, but whenever I do switch off, which is something that I do specifically of late, I spend time with the kids. I think that's when I really am able to relax, though they do drive me nuts, I must confess.
Tell me about your kids and ages and how many.
One is 6, one is 3, so they're more than a handful.
Uh-huh, indeed.
Um,
Indeed.
and yeah, it's that very inquisitive age. And though the little one does not understand, she's always behind the elder one, trying to show her inquisitiveness as well. So yeah, we have quite a few broken things around the house that stand testament to their inquisitiveness.
Very, very good, very cool. So, why did you Why did you start volunteering for PMI, and how long ago? How long you been doing this?
So I started volunteering for PMI maybe a few months ago, though I've been a member of the chapter for about 3-4 years. I must confess, not an active member. However, I have been volunteering a lot in many different other areas as well. See, as far as I'm concerned, I do like to learn something new every day. When you speak to people, when you interact, when you communicate, you're learning something new from them that can actually help you, in your career, in your life. It could be just about anything. And then it provides an opportunity to share my experiences. So it works both ways. You learn and you share.
Very neat. As director of volunteers and regarding that learning and sharing, is there something, some goal or objective you have for other people thinking about volunteering that you'd like to kind of you have this platform tonight to be able to share something along those lines?
Yeah, we are actually working on the plan now for the overall volunteering piece. How is it going to evolve? How can the volunteers contribute and make the most of that opportunity as well while they learn with it? Because we do have a good pool of volunteers for PMI CICI. Megan and Megan, who's the other co-director, the two of us are working towards how we can get the best out of everyone's inherent capabilities and make it work for PMI CIC as well, and make it an enriching experience for every single volunteer that we have here. Today's volunteers, tomorrow could be the board members.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Krishnan, it's been great meeting you and having you on here. Look forward to your service as a director of volunteers. And thanks a lot for joining us tonight.
Thank you.